"You're too old for long flights. Grandma, just watch the house." That's what they said. My son, his wife, and my two grandchildren were getting ready for a big trip. They were all excited, talking about sunny beaches in Greece and eating fresh seafood. They said it like it was a fun joke, something to laugh about. But to me, it felt like a punch in the chest. I didn't say a word. I just waved goodbye as they drove away in their big black van, laughing and full of happiness. They didn't see the sadness on my face. They didn't care to look. The next morning, I went to get the mail, and there they were, plane tickets. But they weren't for me. The envelope was still sealed, not even sent through the mail. It had my son's name, his wife's name, and the names of my grandchildren. They were all going to Athens, a city in Greece. The tickets were for a flight in 3 days. My name was not on them. I already knew it wouldn't be. I took the tickets inside and put them on the kitchen table. Then I made myself a cup of tea, just like I always do when something big happens. My hands were shaking, but I still held the warm cup. I looked at the tickets again. They were a clear sign that I was not wanted, that I was just the person to be left behind to watch the house and water the plants. But my hands kept shaking. I knew I couldn't just sit there and let it go. I found my old phone book and looked for a number. It was the number for the travel agency. I called them. The woman who answered sounded surprised when I told her I wanted to cancel the tickets. "Can I ask why, ma'am?" she asked. "No," I said. "Just cancel them." There was a moment of silence, and then she agreed. I wrote down the cancellation number on a piece of paper. Then I made another cup of tea and sat in the old chair where I used to rock my son to sleep when he was a baby. I looked around the room. I saw a photo of my husband, Paul, on the wall. He had passed away many years ago. If he were here, he would never have let this happen. In this house, I had been many things. I was a wife, a nurse, a cook, and a mother. I had fixed broken toys and helped with sad feelings. For the last 10 years, I was just grandma. My name, Helen, was almost forgotten. My own children and grandchildren saw me as someone quiet and helpful, someone who was always in the background. They thought I would just sit and wait for them to send me photos of their trip, photos of blue skies and messages like, "We miss you." They didn't really mean it. They never planned to bring me. I looked at the canceled tickets one more time. Then I opened a small drawer and took out my passport. It was still good. I also had some money saved, about $12,000. I had no debts and no one who needed me anymore. Not in the way they used to. I made a decision. I booked my own plane ticket, a flight to Athens, for just one person. I called my neighbor, Carol, and asked if she could water my plants while I was gone. "Sure, honey. Going somewhere?" she asked. "Just a little trip," I told her. I packed one small bag with my comfiest shoes, my favorite scarf, and a nice blue dress I hadn't worn since my husband's funeral. I didn't wear it because it was sad. I wore it because it made me feel strong and pretty, and I had forgotten what that felt like. The night before I left, I sat on my porch. The street was very quiet. I thought about what my family would say when they found out. Maybe they would be angry. Maybe they wouldn't even call. I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just staying behind. I was going somewhere. The next morning, I locked the door, left a note for Carol, and walked to the taxi. I walked slowly, but with a clear purpose. I didn't look back at the house. At the airport, the woman who checked my passport smiled at me. It was a kind of smile that young people give to old people traveling alone. "Enjoy your flight, ma'am," she said. I didn't answer. I just kept walking, holding my ticket like a shield. I hadn't flown on a plane in almost 30 years. The airport was loud and big, full of glass and people going everywhere. but I walked through it as if I belonged there. I knew that half the battle was just acting like you belonged, even if you felt invisible. On the plane, I sat in my seat and waited for everyone else to settle. A young man with a wedding ring sat next to me. "Long trip?" he asked. "Long enough," I replied. He smiled and didn't talk to me again, which I was happy about. I slept for most of the flight. It wasn't a deep sleep, but it was the kind of sleep you need when your heart feels heavy. When I woke up, we were flying over a huge blue sea, the Mediterranean. I looked out the window. It was so blue. At that moment, I knew I had really done it. I wasn't here to take pictures or see the sights. I was here because they told me I couldn't be. When I landed in Athens, the air was warm and different. I took a taxi to a small, simple hotel on a quiet street. The woman at the front desk was kind and spoke English. She called me Madam as if it was an important name. In my room, I put my bag down and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't cry. I just sat and stared at the floor. Sadness isn't always tears. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment of thinking about all the times you smiled at parties and holidays, even when you felt left out. That night, I walked around the neighborhood. I found a small bakery and bought bread and olives. The waiter was nice and didn't rush me. I ate slowly and didn't look at my phone once. Nobody was waiting for a message from me anyway. The next morning, I woke up early. The light was soft and bright. I opened the shutters and let the sun come in. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I put on some lipstick, just a little. It was the same color I used to wear before my life became so quiet and gray. I went to the front desk and asked the woman there for a recommendation. Not a place for tourists, but somewhere quiet. She told me to go to a place called Anaphiotica. So I went. It was a beautiful place with white houses, small streets, and flowers in pots. Cats were sleeping in the doorways. It was peaceful and beautiful. I walked until my feet were tired. I sat on a stone bench and just watched the world go by. Young couples walked past, happy and laughing. Nobody looked at me like I was old. Nobody told me to stay home and watch a house. I thought about my granddaughter, Amelia. She's 16 and loves taking photos with filters. I wondered what she would say if she saw me. She would probably laugh or roll her eyes. I took out a postcard and wrote a short message to her. "Dear Amelia, guess where I am? Greece. The sea is so blue. I hope you're doing well. Love, Grandma." I didn't write to my son or his wife. They didn't need to. No, I mailed the postcard and then sat at a cafe drinking coffee slowly, just like my mother used to. That night, back in my room, I realized I was humming. It was an old song Paul, my husband, used to sing. I hadn't thought about it in years. I was not young, and I was not a hero, but I was finally somewhere I wanted to be. That meant a lot. I hadn't planned to meet anyone, but life has a funny way of making things happen. It happened 2 days later at breakfast. I was sitting at a table by the window, putting butter on my toast. At the table next to me was a woman about my age. She had gray hair tied up in a neat bun. She looked at me and said, "You use too much butter." She said it in a kind way. I smiled and said, "Better than too little." She nodded. Fair enough. Her name was Rosalie. She was a retired school principal from France and was traveling alone, just like me. Her husband had passed away, too. She was a confident woman, and she wore her confidence like a nice perfume, not too strong, but always there. We started walking together in the mornings, not to the big tourist places, but to the quiet streets. I liked how she noticed small things like a broken blue window or a dog sleeping next to a statue. She wasn't trying to take photos for social media. She was just really looking at things. At lunch, we sat under a roof covered in green vines and drank cold white wine. She told me about her students, and I told her about my garden at home, how my tomatoes never grew right. And your family? She asked. I thought for a moment. They're fine, I said. They just thought I was too old to travel. Her eyes became a little narrow. They said that to you? I nodded. She didn't get angry. She just took a sip of her wine. You are here now, she said. So they were wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about all the years I had spent just doing what was expected of me. I cooked for birthday parties, but never sat down to enjoy the food. I helped pay for trips, but was never invited to go. I always told myself, they are just busy, or they need me here. But I wasn't really needed. Not for me, just for the tasks I did, like cooking meals and being a dependable person in the background. The next morning, Rosalie knocked on my door. She had a map under her arm and a sparkle in her eye. Florence, she said, it's not far. I've always wanted to see the famous art museum there. Florence, I asked. Why not? She said. We bought train tickets that afternoon. 2 women over 70 buying one-way tickets like young students. We laughed about it at dinner, but I still felt a little scared inside, like an old muscle that wasn't used to moving anymore. That evening, I got a message from my daughter-in-law. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. Did you check the garden? The sprinklers are acting strange. No, how are you? No, where are you? Just about the garden. I didn't reply. I started packing my bag, folding my nice blue dress and my shoes. Rosalie had given me a small vase with flowers in it, because you seem like someone who likes flowers for no reason. She was right. That night, I turned off my phone. No more messages, no more ringing. I wasn't waiting to be included anymore. I was moving forward one step at a time. The train to Florence left early the next morning. We sat side by side, with a paper bag of croissants between us. Rosalie read a book in French. I just looked out the window. The countryside was beautiful and golden, full of green hills and small towns. It looked like a painting my husband once bought. It was a cheap painting, but he loved it because it reminded him of places he had never been. I never thought I would see a place like it myself. We didn't talk much. Rosalie was comfortable with silence. When the train went around a curve, she looked up and offered me the last croissant. I took it and smiled. That was enough. Florence was warm and had narrow streets. Our hotel was old but nice. It had a small balcony that looked over red roofs and clotheslines. I want to see the art by Botticelli, Rosalie said, and also by something silly and expensive that I'll never wear. We did both. The art museum was crowded but amazing. I stood in front of a painting called The Birth of Venus and felt something inside me become loose. It wasn't just awe, it was a feeling that beauty can be quiet and gentle. We walked for hours after that. We stopped at a cafe where the waiter was very friendly with Rosalie. She was friendly back. She had a way of feeling young without pretending to be young. I liked that about her. That night, we ate at a small place away from all the tourists. We ate pasta with butter and drank red wine. We laughed more easily than usual. You're different now, Rosalie said softly. How so? I asked. You sit taller, less folded up. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Later, back in the room, I turned on my phone. There were many missed calls and messages. My son and my daughter-in-law. Where are you? Are you okay? My son left a message with a tired voice. Mom, please call us. The kids are worried. We thought you would be home. I looked at the screen, but I didn't feel anger or sadness. I just felt far away from it all. I felt like I had space to breathe. The next day, Rosalie slept in. I walked around a quiet part of town by myself. I found a store with pretty skirts and earrings. I tried them on, but didn't buy them. In the afternoon, we took a bus up a hill to a town called Fiesole. We sat under trees and looked down at the city of Florence. I said, this is what was missing. Rosalie nodded, like she knew exactly what I meant. When we got back to the hotel, there was another message from my son. Mom, did you cancel our vacation on purpose? We got to the airport, and never mind. Just please call. We're worried. I turned my phone off again. That night, as we walked back to the hotel, Rosalie asked, so where to next? I thought for a moment. Lisbon, I said. I've always wanted to hear the sad music there. The Fado. Rosalie smiled. Let's go then. Lisbon felt like an old friend. It was warm and a little messy, full of music you didn't have to understand to feel. The streets were wet from the rain the night before. We stayed in a nice guest house with blue shutters. Our room had a small balcony that looked out onto a square where children were playing. I stood on the balcony for a long time, watching the sun go down and listening to the voices below. That day, Rosalie wasn't feeling well. Nothing serious, just a small fever. It's nothing, she said, waving me off. Go out and see the city. But I didn't. I brought her tea and sat by her bed. I read to her from a book we had bought in Florence. She fell asleep while I was reading. It made me think of my husband in the hospital, the quiet breathing, the small acts of kindness that no one ever writes about, but that means so much. I realized something then. I had spent my whole life taking care of others. My children, my grandchildren, Paul, even the dog. But this, sitting by Rosalie's bed and taking care of her, didn't feel like a duty. It felt like a choice. That night, I cooked for us. Just eggs and bread and tomatoes. We ate on the balcony. Rosalie was feeling better. Thank you, she said after we finished. For the eggs. I asked. For not leaving, she said. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and drank my tea. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Fado music coming from the square below. It was a sad, beautiful song. A man was singing, and his voice was not perfect, but it reached me anyway. I stood on the balcony with my arms crossed and listened to the music. Rosalie was ready to go out a little later. We walked slowly. She was still recovering, and I was thinking a lot. We passed a church with its doors open. I saw a woman light a candle inside and pray. I didn't go in. I just watched. Back at the guest house, I turned my phone on. There were 5 new messages from my daughter-in-law. This isn't funny, Helen. And we don't know what to tell the kids. My son had also sent a message. You've made your point. Had I? I wasn't even sure what point they thought I was making. I hadn't said a word to them since they left. Rosalie saw me reading the messages. She didn't ask about them. She just poured me a cup of tea. That night, we found a small Fado bar. There were no tourists, just local people. A woman was singing with a beautiful, sad voice. She sang about being left behind and getting back up again. I sat there with my eyes closed, and I understood every word. The next morning, a letter was slipped under our door. It was folded in 3 parts with my name written on it. My son. I knew it was from him. Rosalie saw the letter, but didn't say anything. I opened it. It was short. Mom, we don't understand what you are doing. The kids are confused. Amelia cried. We thought you were just upset, but this is something else. If you are trying to punish us, you've made your point. Come home. Let's talk. Please, David. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No apology for leaving me behind. Just concern for how my being gone looked to others. It was like my absence was more embarrassing to them than their rejection was hurtful to me. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Rosalie looked at me. So, are we having breakfast or just feeling sad about a bad letter from a son? I laughed. We ate in a sunny courtyard. Rosalie talked about a museum she wanted to see. I nodded, but my mind was still on the letter. The truth was, I didn't leave to punish them. I left because I was tired of always having to ask for a place at a table that seemed to get smaller every year. Birthdays were just a text message. Holidays were too busy. And now, even family trips came with the quiet understanding that I was not included. I hadn't stopped being a mother or a grandmother. They had simply stopped seeing me as a person. Later that day, I sat alone by the river. Pigeons were fighting for food at my feet. My hands were still in my lap. I thought of Amelia, my granddaughter. The last time we spoke, she asked me how to cook an egg. She called me the egg whisperer. She didn't know about the tickets. She probably thought they forgot to invite me, or that I had said no. I took out my phone and sent her a message. Sweetheart, I'm fine. I'm traveling. Not angry, just needed some sky. Don't worry. Love you. I sent it quickly, without thinking too much. Rosalie found me there a little later with 2 bags of sweet tarts. You can't leave Lisbon without trying these, she said. We ate them together, watching the sun go down. That evening, the manager of the guest house came to me. Mrs. Helen, he said, your daughter-in-law called. She's worried. She said the children miss you. I nodded. Thank you, I said. He asked if I wanted to call her back. No, I said. He looked unsure, but left. That night, I slept deeply. It was the kind of sleep you get when you've stopped waiting to be needed and started choosing to be whole. The next morning, Rosalie showed me 2 train schedules. One for Madrid, one for Seville. Your choice, she said. I looked out the window. Seville, I said. Let's see what else they said I was too old for. Seville was hot and full of life. It was a bold city, full of music and loud voices. We arrived late in the afternoon. Our hotel was simple, but the balcony looked out over a courtyard with orange trees. The air smelled of oranges and music. Rosalie said, this place needs earrings. She put on some silver earrings that moved when she did. I didn't have any, but I put on my lipstick, the same lipstick I had found in Athens. The tube was almost empty. For the first time in years, I thought about buying a new one. That evening, we went out without a plan. We followed the sound of music and clapping to a restaurant in a courtyard where people were dancing the flamenco. It wasn't for tourists. It was for themselves. A woman was dancing. She wasn't young, but her face was full of life. She moved her feet on the floor with great strength. Rosalie whispered to me, she's older than we are. I looked closer. She was probably in her 70s. Her feet hit the floor like a promise. The people clapped. I just watched, and my heart felt full. The next day, we visited a beautiful old palace with amazing walls and gardens. I thought of all the stories I had locked inside me. Years of being quiet and being disappointed, but not showing it. I walked through the gardens like I belonged there. Nobody stopped me or offered to help me. I didn't feel fragile. That afternoon, we sat at a cafe. I watched people walk by. That's when I saw a family. A mother, a father, and 2 teenagers. The mother had a haircut that looked familiar. For a second, I thought it was my daughter-in-law. My chest felt tight. It wasn't her, of course, but the feeling passed. Back at the hotel, I found a message from Amelia. Grandma, where are you now? That photo from Lisbon was amazing. I showed it to my art teacher. She said you have a good eye. Can I call you soon? I smiled. I hadn't sent her a photo. Rosalie must have. I looked in my phone. There it was. A picture of me on the balcony in Lisbon looking at the street below. I didn't remember her taking it, but there I was not posing, not apologizing, just being myself. I wrote back, Seville now. It's hot and beautiful. I'll call you tomorrow. You would love it here. That night, I thought of all the places I hadn't been because I had to stay home, the vacations I had paid for but was not invited on. But now, here I was, in Seville, wearing a soft dress I had bought from a friendly seller who called me the brave lady. I closed my eyes and listened to the music from a radio far away. Tomorrow I would dance, not for anyone, just to remember that I could. It started with a call I didn't answer, then another and another. My son, David, I let it ring. He had called 26 times in 2 days. I didn't listen to a single message. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done with waiting to be heard. Rosalie was already dressed when I came out of the bathroom. She was wearing a wide hat and a dress that floated when she walked. There's a market by the river, she said. I feel like buying something. We walked there slowly. The market was real, not for tourists. Men were shouting prices and women were laughing. I felt something inside me loosen, like a knot that had been there for a long time. I bought a scarf. It was bright yellow, a color I never used to wear. But it felt right. While Rosalie was shopping, I sat under a big umbrella and checked my phone. I don't know why. Maybe it was just a habit. There was a message from Amelia. Grandma, I don't know if you'll hear this, but I miss you. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They think you're trying to prove something, but I don't think so. I think you just got tired of being left behind. I would have been, too. You look happy in that photo. I've never seen you look like that. Just call me, okay? Even if it's just for a minute. I listened to her message 3 times. That last sentence, even if it's just for a minute, broke through my silence. I went back to the hotel alone. I sat on the bed with my new yellow scarf in my lap. I picked up the phone and called her. Amelia answered right away. Her voice was shaky. Grandma, she said, I'm here, sweetheart. Oh my God, she said. She closed a door, and the room became quiet. I was starting to think you'd gone totally wild, she said. Not wild, I said. Just found something I forgot I lost. What? She asked. Myself, I said. She was quiet for a moment. I get it, she said softly. I think I get it more than Mom and Dad do. I believed her. We talked for 15 minutes about school, her drawings, and a boy she liked. Normal, precious things. Then she asked, Are you coming back soon? I don't know yet, I said. Can I see you when you do? Of course, baby. We hung up. I felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because something honest had passed between us. Rosalie came back with a bag full of olives. Victory, she said. We ate them on the balcony as the sun turned the sky red. I think they're starting to understand, I said. Who? She asked. My family. She chewed slowly. About time. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was worried, but because I felt a new sense of calm. In the morning, I put on the yellow scarf. Just because I could. Lisbon had been soft and aching. Florence, graceful and slow. But Seville had given me heat and thunder. It had shaken loose a part of me that was still trapped in sadness. And now, with my scarf on and my ticket in hand, we boarded a train to a new city. Rosalie was humming. Why are you humming? I asked. We're going to see a famous palace, she said. I hum for good buildings. I smiled. I folded my hands in my lap and watched the fields go by. Our last stop was a city called Granada. It was quieter than I had expected. The streets were narrow, like whispers between buildings. The air smelled of oranges. We checked into a small hotel run by a tired-looking man. Our room had a view of rooftops. It was a real, honest view. That evening, I sat alone on the terrace while Rosalie took a nap. I looked at my phone messages, not to reply, but to remind myself that I could choose to be silent. That is a strange kind of freedom. But one message caught my eye. It was from David. "Mom, did we lose you?" There was no anger, just a question, a recognition. I didn't reply. I opened a notebook I had bought in Lisbon and started to write. I wrote things I had never said out loud. I wasn't always tired. I just got tired of not being seen. Every time you called me old-fashioned, I held back a sentence I should have said. "I still remember when you were 5 and gave me a rock you called precious. That was the last time you gave me something just for me. I miss being called by my name." I didn't cry. I just kept writing. The next morning, we climbed the hill to the palace. It was a hard climb, and my knees hurt, but I kept going. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I just wanted to see it for myself. And there it was, beautiful arches and fountains and carvings. I looked at it and thought, this is what beauty looks like when no one rushes it. Rosalie took a picture of me sitting on a bench. "You look like someone who has remembered something important," she said. I said. I remembered that I was never just someone who stayed behind. That night, I found a voice message from Amelia. Her voice was tight. "Grandma, I think Dad is starting to realize something has really changed. He asked if I had heard from you." I said yes. He looked scared, like he knows he can't just apologize with flowers and act like none of this happened. I told him, "You're not angry. You're just finished." I hope that was okay. It was more than okay. It was perfect. I replied. I sent her a photo Rosalie had taken of me at the top of the hill, my face calm. No words, just the picture. She sent back a heart emoji. I closed my phone and looked at the fan on the ceiling turning slowly. Tomorrow we would go to the sea. Rosalie wanted to feel the ocean air. I said yes, not because I needed to see the ocean, but because I finally had the space to want something again. We took the bus to a city called Cadiz. The ride was long, but I didn't mind. I watched the fields turn into beaches. We found a small hotel near the port. The room smelled of salt. From our balcony, we could see fishing boats. I stood there for a long time, watching the boats. That evening, we walked on the beach. The waves were not big, just steady. Rosalie found a piece of green sea glass and put it in her pocket. I walked barefoot, letting the cold water touch my toes. An old couple was walking nearby, holding hands like teenagers. I sat on a rock and watched the sun go down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was David again. "Please just let us hear your voice." I looked at the screen. Then I opened my phone and pressed record. I didn't plan what I would say. I just spoke. "David, I'm not angry, but I am changed. I spent most of my life waiting to be asked, to be needed, to be seen. And I was sometimes, but mostly I was just a part of the background of your lives. I don't say this to make you feel guilty. I say it because it's true. I love you. I always will. But I'm not coming back to the person you wanted me to be. If you want me in your life, it won't be as a backup plan or a babysitter. It will have to be as a person, a whole person. I hope you understand. Good night." I hit send. The sea made a quiet sound. When I got back to the hotel, Rosalie was reading. "You sent it," she said. I nodded. "How do you feel?" she asked. Like I finally said the thing I had been holding in for 20 years. I said. She smiled. "About time." That night, I had a dream. I was in a long hallway with many doors. I walked slowly, and with each step, a door opened behind me. I didn't look back. The next morning, there was no reply from David, but there was a message from Amelia, a picture she had drawn. It was me on the beach, with my yellow scarf, my hair blowing in the wind. The words she wrote were, "She looks like she remembered who she was." I looked at it for a long time. Then I turned to Rosalie. "Let's go dancing tonight." She looked at me, surprised. "Dancing? My knees won't like that." I laughed. "They'll learn." We went to a loud bar near the docks. It was full of young people. We found a table and sat down. Rosalie wore her silver earrings. I wore the yellow scarf tied in my hair. We didn't look like we belonged there. But then again, belonging had never done me much good. The music was loud and had a strong beat. I watched the people dancing. A man with a crooked mustache was dancing with a woman our age, and they were laughing like they were young again. Something inside me shifted. "I'm going to go," I said. Rosalie looked up. "Where?" "Out there." She blinked. "Alone?" "Yes." I stood up and walked onto the dance floor. I didn't wait for a partner. I just started to move. At first, my body felt strange and stiff, but the music pulled me forward, and the years fell off me like dust. I danced, not gracefully, but fully. A young man smiled at me and offered his hand. I took it for a moment, spun once, laughed, and let go. I didn't need him to lead me. I had my own rhythm. Rosalie joined me after a while. We danced together like schoolgirls at a party. We were awkward and breathless and happy. We danced for 2 hours, then 3. When we finally went back to the hotel, we fell onto the bed, tired and happy. That was not responsible. Rosalie said, out of breath. "I know. I loved it. I know." We lay there for a long time, catching our breath. My knees hurt, and my back would be sore tomorrow. But my heart felt wide open. Before I fell asleep, I checked my phone. Still no reply from David. But another message from Amelia. "Dad doesn't know how to answer you. He keeps reading your message. He printed it out. It's on the kitchen table. He hasn't touched it all day. Mom thinks you've lost your mind. I told her maybe you finally found it. I miss you. I'm proud of you." I stared at her words. Simple, quiet, and real. I wrote back, "I miss you too. Tell your father. He doesn't have to answer yet. Some truths take time to land." She sent back a small anchor emoji. It made me laugh. I put my phone down and looked at the fan spinning slowly on the ceiling. I thought of the dance floor. I hadn't done anything big or amazing. I hadn't climbed a mountain or learned a new language. But I had found my joy again. At 72 years old. That felt like the most important thing of all. I fell asleep with sore feet and a heart that finally felt like it belonged to me again. We left Cadiz at dawn. Rosalie slept on the train. I stayed awake, watching the world go by. Our last stop was Barcelona. We both knew it was the end of our trip, the end of our journey together. We arrived in the afternoon and took a taxi to a quiet street. The hotel was small, but the bed was soft. We unpacked in silence. Later, we walked around the city. I remembered Amelia once saying that Barcelona looked like someone had painted with buildings. She was right. The buildings were beautiful and colorful. I liked it more than I expected. We had dinner at a small cafe. We didn't talk much. The end was near, and we both felt it. That night, I sat on the balcony with a shawl around my shoulders and my notebook in my lap. I had more to write now. I thought if I gave enough, they would keep me close. But love that you have to buy with sacrifice is not real love. I didn't mind getting older. I minded being put aside. It took me 50 years to realize that being quiet is not always a strength. Sometimes it's just fear dressed in patience. I don't regret being the mother I was. I regret the person I disappeared to become her. I closed the notebook. My phone buzzed. Not David or Amelia. It was my daughter-in-law, Laura. The message was long. Helen, we have all been talking. David doesn't know how to talk to you anymore. He thinks anything he says will be wrong. I told him that sometimes listening is more important. We didn't mean to leave you out. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's the truth. We told ourselves you would be more comfortable at home. That was a lie. We were afraid of your age. Not because of what you couldn't do, but because it reminded us of our own age. We are sorry. I'm sorry. If you ever decide to come home, we would like to start over. No expectations. Just you as you are. I sat very still. It wasn't an apology that fixed everything. It was just a start. The next morning, Rosalie found me packing my bag. Going home? She asked. I nodded. Are you sure? She asked. Yes. She smiled. It's about time you threw the last punch. I laughed. It wasn't a punch, I said. More like a door opened. Rosalie left 2 days later. We hugged at the train station. We didn't say goodbye. We just said, soon. That night, alone in the hotel room, I drank a glass of wine and sat by the window. I didn't feel like the journey was over, but I felt full. Tomorrow, I would buy a ticket, not to go back to the house they told me to watch, but to the life I had finally chosen to return to on my own terms. The airport felt different this time. It felt less like a goodbye and more like a pause. I wasn't leaving something behind. I was bringing something back. Myself. The flight was quiet. I didn't read or watch a movie. I just sat with my thoughts. When I landed, no one was there to meet me. I didn't expect them to be. The air was thicker here. It smelled like wet grass. I took a taxi home. The streets were full of memories. The bakery, where I used to take Amelia. The park, where David broke his arm. The pharmacy where I once stood with Laura buying medicine and a pregnancy test. They weren't bad memories. They just felt far away now, like they belonged to someone else. My house was just as I had left it. The plants were watered. The porch was clean. The key turned easily in the lock. Inside, everything was still. I walked through the rooms, touching things. The couch, the bowl on the table, the photo of Paul. Nothing had moved, but everything felt different. I didn't unpack. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed. It was Amelia. Are you home? I wrote back, yes. 10 minutes later, she sent another message. Can I come by? I wrote back without a second thought. Yes, the door is open. She arrived in 20 minutes. She didn't say much. She just gave me a long, quiet hug that said more than any words could. She sat across from me, her backpack still on her shoulder. She looked older, not in age, but in her understanding of things. I read your list, she said. I was confused. My list. She smiled. You left your notebook open in one of your photos. I saw it. Well, a part of it. I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt seen. I've been making one, too, she said, taking out a small notebook. The first page said, things I refuse to accept quietly. She read a few of the things on her list. The idea that women get too old for what they want. The habit of saying I'm fine when I'm not. The silence that comes after someone tells you you're too much. The shame that is passed down like old furniture. I read them all. Then I looked at her, this young woman who had watched me disappear and come back. You're going to be okay? I said. She nodded. Because you were. We talked for hours. At one point, I reached for her hand. You know, your father hasn't called yet, I said. She looked down. He's scared. Of me? I asked. Of what you've become. Of what he never let himself see before. I didn't reply. The doorbell rang. That's them, she said. I didn't move. I'll get it, she said. I heard the door open, and then my son's voice. He walked into the kitchen, looking tired and older. He looked at me, waiting for me to speak. I wanted to come alone, he said, but Laura insisted. She appeared behind him, her hands together, no makeup on. We don't know how to start, she said. I stood up. You already did, I replied. You showed up. David took a step forward. I didn't want to lose you. You didn't, I said. You just stopped seeing me. He nodded. I'm sorry. It wasn't a big, fancy apology. It was honest. It was enough. I made some tea, I said. There's still some in the pot. They sat down, not as the owners of the house, not as people asking for a favor, but as people who had finally realized that the seat at the table was not theirs for free. They had to earn it. They didn't stay long. Just an hour. Enough time for awkward silences and the quiet work of building a new relationship. I didn't try to make it easy for them. I let them feel the quiet I had lived in for years. Laura talked more than David, but this time her voice was less sure and she listened more. She asked about my trip, about the places, and the food. I gave her small pieces of the story, not the whole thing. She didn't deserve the whole story yet. When they left, David stopped at the door. Can I? He started, then stopped. Do you want to come for dinner sometime? Just us. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. He seemed relieved. After they were gone, the house was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. Not the quiet that breaks when you breathe too loudly. This was a softer quiet. A pause before a new story begins. That night, I sat on my porch with a blanket. I opened my notebook again. I had left some pages empty for this moment, for this return. I wrote a new list, things I know now. People don't notice your silence until it costs them something. Leaving is not the same as running away. You can still start over at 72. Some doors don't need to be slammed, just closed softly but firmly. Your voice is not gone. It is just waiting for you to stop asking for permission. I put the pen down and added one more thing. Forgiveness is not for them. It is for your own breath. I closed the notebook and smelled the night flowers. The next day, Amelia came by. She didn't call first. She just walked in, took off her shoes, and sat on the couch like she used to when she was a little girl. I made a big decision, she said. Oh, I asked. I'm applying to an art school in Berlin. I looked at her. Her eyes were nervous but steady. I know it's far, she said, and Mom is already worried. But I have to do this. I have to go. I didn't flinch. You should, I said. She blinked. Really? Don't wait for permission, I said. You'll miss your life. Her face broke into a slow smile. I knew you would understand. She stayed for hours. We made soup and talked about books. She asked about Rosalie and laughed when I told her we danced until our legs hurt. You're kind of a legend, she said, teasing me. No, I said, I'm just finally myself. Before she left, she gave me a small envelope. Inside was a drawing, the same beach from Cadiz, but with a new person standing at the edge of the water. Me. My arms were open, and my head was tilted toward the sea. At the bottom, she had written, she didn't come back the same, and that was the point. I looked at her. She shrugged. I'm going to get it framed. After she left, I put the drawing next to Paul's photo. He would have understood. The next morning, I got a letter in the mail. Real paper, blue ink. It was from David. Mom, thank you for the tea, for letting us sit in the silence. I see it now. I don't expect to be forgiven, but I would like to try, not to erase anything, but to build something better if you are willing. No promises, just a man learning how to talk differently to the woman who raised him. I folded the letter. I didn't reply yet. Some silences are not meant to be filled. They are meant to be honored. I didn't go to dinner right away. I let the invitation sit. Days passed, then a week. I watered my own plants. I cooked for myself. I walked in the mornings. I was not punishing anyone. I was not trying to make them worry. I just needed to feel what my life was like without them. And it was a good life. Not loud or dramatic, just steady and mine. Rosalie sent me a postcard from another city. They still think I am a widow with a secret fortune. She wrote, "Let them." On the back, she had drawn two women dancing, one with a yellow scarf. I laughed and put it on my kitchen window. Then, one morning, I called David. "Sunday," I said, "5 o'clock. I'll bring dessert." He sounded surprised and grateful. When I arrived at their house, Laura opened the door. She didn't smile too quickly or try to hug me. She just stepped aside and said, "Come in." I walked through the rooms like a guest. The walls had new art. The furniture was in different places. The air felt different. I wasn't hurt. They had kept living. So had I. Amelia was at the table. She came and kissed my cheek. "I made salad," she whispered, like it was a secret. Dinner was okay, but a little quiet. David asked questions. Laura offered me more food. I answered simply. I listened more than I spoke. I watched the way David looked at me, like he was checking to see if I was real. Near the end of the meal, he cleared his throat. I read your notebook," he said. I looked at him. "What notebook?" "The one in the photo. Amelia let me read some of it. She said it was important. I saw what you weren't saying." "That sounds like her," I said. He looked down and added, "It hurt." "Good," I said. He looked up, surprised. "Good," I repeated, "because it means you finally heard me." He nodded slowly. I did. Laura cleared her throat. "We've talked about things a lot, and we want to do better." "I'm not here for promises," I said. "I'm here to see if you are learning." They both nodded. I took out my dessert. It was a lemon pie, not too sweet. We ate in silence for a while. Then Amelia said, "I want to read something." She took a folded paper out of her pocket. It was her own list. Her voice shook a little as she read it. "Things I want to remember. My grandma taught me that disappearing quietly is a slow kind of death. That being gentle is not the same as being silent. That women don't have to give all their energy to make others comfortable. That loving someone doesn't mean you have to become a smaller person for them. That it's okay to outgrow your place at the table and demand a new one." I blinked hard. No one spoke for a long time. Eventually, Laura stood up to clear the dishes. David helped. Amelia poured more tea, and I sat back, watching them. It was a different kind of quiet now. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the earned kind. The kind you have when people are finally learning how to be honest with each other. When I left, David walked me to the door. "I know it will take time," he said. "I have time," I said. Then I reached into my bag and gave him a thin envelope. "What's this?" "A copy of the tickets." I said, "The ones I canceled." He stared at it. "I kept them," I said, not to be mean, but to remember the truth, so we don't forget how easy it was to forget me. He didn't open the envelope. He just nodded and put it in his pocket. We didn't hug, but we stood close, like people who might one day understand each other without having to explain every sad feeling. At home, I took off my shoes and folded my scarf. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was older, yes, but not tired. Wiser, but not cold. There were new lines on my face that weren't there before the trip, but they weren't marks of sadness. They were a map of the path I had taken back to myself. Before bed, I wrote one last page in my notebook. Things I no longer say sorry for. Wanting my own space. Wanting more for myself. Saying no. Leaving quietly. Coming back louder. And at the bottom, I wrote, I was never too old. I was just never asked if I still had dreams. Now, I don't wait to be asked. I just go. My journey was a beautiful, difficult one. It was a journey of finding a new path, not because I was looking for something new, but because I had lost the path to my own heart. In the end, I didn't come back with souvenirs or fancy photos. I came back with something much more valuable, my own voice. My family is still learning, and so am I. But the important thing is that we are learning together in a new way with new rules. We are not erasing the past, but we are building a new future on top of it. A future where I am a whole person, a future where I have a seat at the table, not because of what I do for them, but because of who I am. My story is not one of a final destination, but of a long, open road, and I am ready to keep walking down it. I finally remembered that the most important journey is the one you take to find yourself again.